All right, welcome to War Media Bears pregame. I am Saul Rodriguez. I am here with my fellow War member Joe Tanksley. How we doing, man?
We're doing pretty good, man. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yep. It's been a minute, but I'm excited, to about this season and hopefully about what we're going to see tonight.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I've been fired up all day, just thinking, well, all week really, just thinking about
Right.
possibility. But of course, it's always like you get your hopes up. You're just like, dude, just don't get your hopes up too high.
Well, you know
Have it.
what? You know what? Number 12 says he owns us, and they're really stung,
Yep,
and it really stung.
yep,
And when you go back and look at the history, for the last few years, he has.
yeah.
He's dominated against the Chicago Bears, and hopefully the tide will turn tonight. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, yep. This is true. All right, so we'll get right into it. So, kind of following the week one performances by each team. Obviously, the Bears they came out with a an upset win over the San Francisco
Hmm.
49ers, 19-10, and then the Packers were kind of the other way around. They was a very it was a letdown, a disappointing 27-9 loss to the Vikings. What do you expect to see tonight from these two teams? I think like when you look at it, the Bears obviously riding high.
Hmm.
Packer. I wouldn't say the Packers aren't super low because they've been here before. Last year they kind of had
Right.
a similar start to the season.
Relax.
Exactly.
Relax.
Yeah. Yeah. RELAX. So like,
Yeah.
what do you expect to see from these two teams tonight as they match up?
Well, both teams definitely have something to prove, and um, I think it's going to be a very competitive game. I think coming off the embarrassing loss that they had last week, Aaron Rodgers, and just looking, I mean, he looked like he didn't have an answer for what Minnesota was doing,
Mhm.
and Minnesota's a very good home team. Green Bay was without both of their tackles and their number one receiver, Alan Lazard. So they were shorthanded as well. I think Lazard and Bakhtiari are expected to be back. I'm not sure about Jenkins, but um, I think they're going to come out and have something to prove. And given they're familiar with success against the Bears, I think they're going to come into Lambeau highly confident that they're going to come out with a W.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that, as we said, I don't think they're necessarily down. I think they're definitely chill, like, but they do expect a lot. I mean, that's why I'm
Hmm.
sure that the Bears are not gonna expect to see the Packers from week one. Like they're gonna
Right.
expect to see the Packers they see all the time. And I think that's what we always expect to see out of of Aaron Rodgers is cool, calm, collected, and being able to come back from stuff like that. But speaking of Rodgers, he's 8-0 following a loss in
Right.
2019. From
Hmm.
him particularly, from his game, and you said a little bit, you alluded to like his wide receiver play. Uh, what do you expect to see from him individually? And also, you think Lazard is going to make that difference? I mean, he talked about in the offseason saying it's his number one now,
Hmm.
it's his number one wide receiver. But some might look at that and say that's, when you compare it to Devontae Adams, it's a super duper, like, drop down from what he had before. So do you think it'll affect him that much? Do you think it'll make a difference tonight, really?
Well, you know what? I don't think Lazard is Devontae Adams,
Mhm.
but I do think that it's a target that Aaron Rodgers is familiar with, and who understands Aaron Rodgers' expectations and how to run routes and how to get open and what to do on certain looks and certain plays uh, that the defense is giving them. And so I think that familiarity is kind of going to be like a kind of like a security blanket for Aaron Rodgers, somebody he can depend on and that he can trust. Christian Watson, he smoked one, so
Yeah.
you know, and I felt bad for the kid, but it's gonna, when you're dealing with a MVP type player like Aaron
Mhm.
Rodgers, it's gonna take a while to earn that trust back. Um, and hopefully, it doesn't happen this game, but I think there's going to be a pointed effort, with the the lack of talent at the wide receiver position that they have. I think we're going to see a bigger effort in the run game with the proven players that they have in Jones and Dylan.
Yeah, no, that's the one. That's a couple of the guys that I think I worry about the most. It's not even the. when it comes to wide receivers and with guys like Aaron Rodgers or even like Mahomes, people talk about right in the offseason, the whole offseason, oh, is Mahomes going to be okay without that? Obviously, we think he's okay.
Right, right.
Free kill. There's nothing to worry about. That's another reason why I'm also going into the season. I wasn't necessarily worried about Rodgers either, in the sense of I think he's going to be fine with the guys he's got. First game, I don't think that's going to be a trend. I think he's going to be able to come back from that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, Lazard. I think familiarity is everything, especially when it comes to that that quarterback wide receiver relationship. So that is going to be, I think, what makes a difference if they're able to connect, especially in this game. But yeah, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers playing against the Bears, like, you could have the ball boy out there, and I'm sure he could make a play.
I mean, it is the thing, whenever the Bears, play the Packers, Aaron Rodgers always has a knack of, making the flukiest play, and he's like, how did that even happen? It's like it looks so goofy and weird. It's like, how does that happen? And it always happens against the Bears, But he's an MVP player, MVP caliber player for a reason. And he's proven that he can do it. Not just against the Bears. I mean, he's had the most success against the Bears, but that's because he plays us twice a year. but he's done it to pretty much everybody except in the playoffs.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah, if they had to play the Bears every season in the playoffs, then then I'm sure they'd have more success there.
Right.
But yeah, no, you're right in the sense that, like, yeah, every time I'm watching the Bears Packers game, I'm just like, dude, how is he making these throws? All these like acrobatic type throws, running one way, throwing like it's a definition of threading the needle.
It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah,
but it's mind-boggling. But I think I don't want to say that he's finished. But a lot of times when these things happen, it happens all of a sudden and very quick. And I happen to enjoy watching Aaron Rodgers play, except when he's playing against the Bears. But what happened in Minnesota felt a little bit different, and maybe we can chalk it up to the pressure that Minnesota was able to put on Aaron Rodgers and the lack of the offensive line talent that they had in Week 1. But something about that just didn't seem right. His body language was off. His mannerisms, he was hanging his head a lot, the shoulder shrugs. It could be, the lack of faith that he has in his receivers, or and just being, overwhelmed a little bit. It's very rare that you see Aaron Rodgers, look overwhelmed, but he looked overwhelmed that game, and hopefully the Bears can, use some of that game plan and be able to generate that kind of pressure in Lambeau tonight.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is going to Green Bay. It's a whole different monster. It's it's all so it's. But I do agree with you in that sense, right? Like the things like this happen all of a sudden. You don't necessarily expect them to with quarterbacks his age and stuff like that. So yeah, it could definitely be the start of something. Hopefully, right, for Bears fans. But kind of a flip side now to kind of Justin Fields. I wanted to get your thoughts on, after Week 1 with the way he played and the way he was able to kind of flip the switch in the second half, because it was a cold first half for the whole offense. But what do you think? What do you want to see from him in this game, especially playing again, like I said, at Green Bay, with the raucous crowd, I'm sure.
I want to see decisiveness from him. I want to see a command of the offense, and it's going to be a hostile environment. And he's done a very good job, in his very young career, being stoic and staying even keeled, through throughout the struggles of last year, and even in Week 1, that was horrible conditions to play a football game, and he handled it masterfully. And I think a little, I think people wanted to see a little bit more offensively from the Bears and from Justin Fields, but the conditions really didn't allow it. And in the second half, you could see that he made up his mind to take over the game. He used his legs a little bit more, and I think a lot of those those rollouts and leaving the pocket were things that he did on his own, and that really kind of change the tide of the game. And and this is, you could say, that the Bears won that game because of him.
Mhm.
Because of what he did in the defense. The defense played very well, forcing those turnovers and and rattling Trey Lance, and I hope he, his injury is not too serious. I expect big things from Trey Lance. He was carted off today, but
Mhm.
in week one, Justin Fields was the better quarterback, and ultimately that was the reason the Bears won.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing too is like, yeah, that's I think the one thing people want to see the most is a little more decisiveness and less
Hmm.
indecisiveness because it's funny because I saw this Kurt Warner quarterback class on YouTube and he talks one of the main things he talked about from Justin Fields is that he's got all the talent in the world, but I think what he
Hmm.
wants to see from him is just to be more sure of where he's throwing it, when he's throwing it, and I
Hmm.
guess the way I see it too is like I'm sure you can chalk I don't want to say most of it, but a good amount of it on the offensive line and how much time he has, a little bit of time.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you have to have that confidence in every throw you have, and I mean, it's easier said than done, but
Yeah,
the confidence has to be there, right?
the confidence definitely has to be there, and I think the hardest thing is, for somebody as a talent, of just in the field and coming from Ohio State, where
Mhm.
everybody's open, wide open all the time, and then you come to the NFL and then you can't always throw to a wide open person. You have to throw to
Mhm.
a window, and
Mhm.
I think that was an adjustment that he struggled with last year, throwing to the open spot, throwing to the window. And I think that's something that he's going to improve. That he improved in from the first half to the second half in week one. And I think they're going to do a good job of doing things to his skill set that will allow him to do those things. The second TD pass
Mhm.
in week one, the one to Equimini and St. Brown.
Mhm.
That was one where he that was his second or third read. So you see the maturity. He's trusting the process and trusting the plays. So and I like that. He's using his ability to run to
Mhm.
to to put the defense, just in week one, in you know in a difficult spot, because he can run, but he's also, you know, giving it the threat of the pass. So, you just kind of have to stand still and wait to see what he does
Mhm.
as a
Yeah.
defender. And that's, in playing defense, they hate that, you know.
Right.
So, they just want to make it, they just want to run and hit. So, by making them think and, and read a little bit longer, that's only going to help him out, that threat to run, being a passer first, but also knowing that, he can always run. It's something that, Green Bay is going to have to you know, keep in their mind throughout the game.
No, yeah, and that's another thing too is like the way another thing I was kind of thinking about is that even though it again you could chalk it up to the offensive line not giving him a lot of time to throw, but if that's gonna be a situation, then you want a guy like Justin Fields who can scramble and get out of the
Hmm.
way. At least he's got it. Even though
Hmm.
you might say also he doesn't need to do that. He shouldn't have to do that. Then it's still like you know what I mean. It's still nice to have him, and it's funny because he's done some of those crazy throws or crazy plays where he's like
Hmm.
exited the pocket safely from the chaos. He's done it against San Francisco, so I thought that was kind of funny.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
another thing,
that first throw where he had to go to the sidearm to get that screen pass off. Those are the kinds of things that he's capable of, and
mhm,
he's athletic enough to do.
yeah,
And I would say that even when they ran those screenplays, he looked comfortable doing them, and he didn't look too
mhm,
rattled. He didn't rush the screenplay. He gave it time to develop. So I think we're gonna, it's gonna be a tough game. I think Green Bay, that defense, they laid a goose egg. Justin Jefferson torched them, so
mhm.
they're gonna be out for blood, and they're going to really come after Justin Fields tonight, and this is going to be a real test. The Green Bay Packers still think they own the Bears, and it's up to the Bears to prove that they don't.
Yep, exactly. No, it's yeah, that's the way I see it too. It's like it's all on until whatever happens, it's gonna be you have to be the Bears stopping the Packers. And the Packers are not gonna beat themselves. At least
Right.
from what we always expect, right? And hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
some goes wrong tonight for them.
And that's the key takeaway too. I
Mhm.
think you said that the Packers don't do things to beat themselves,
Mhm.
and that's one thing that I would notice in just week one, and it really is early in the season. But you can kind of see in the first game that when San Francisco started getting frustrated with the weather and they started getting these unnecessary penalties, and the Bears didn't do that. They kept their
Mhm.
composure, they kept things in check, and they didn't beat themselves. And so I think if they can keep that discipline, and that's the biggest thing that I've seen so far is the level of discipline versus the previous regime and the accountability that they seem to have so far in the season. And I think as long as they play sound, technique sound, play discipline, I think they'll be in the game. They'll be in the
Mhm.
game.
Yeah, and kind of also another thing was with the way the games went last year. Bears were in the game, were in both of those games. Actually, had the lead in both of those games. Even a 10-point lead in that second game. So in the first one, I believe it was 24-14. Second one was
Mm-hmm.
45. Yeah. And so, what do you think the Bears can take from those games? Use them, for example, specifically Justin Fields, for example, and kind of what they can use for this season, for this year. Because I think those games, as much as uh, Aaron Rodgers was a big deal for Aaron Jones, they were the big parts of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of good positives that the Bears can take from that and then use towards this, especially when it comes to like Fields and the way he played in that second game. Kind of what did you see last year that they can put into this season?
Well, the thing about it is when last year I think the Bears had a horrible um, time of getting the ball into the end zone once they hit the red zone
Mm-hmm.
and pushing it in for 7 or 6 and then the extra point. Hopefully we can get those this week.
Yeah.
But
Oh boy.
right, but getting touchdowns, and that's the biggest thing. You can't go against Aaron Rodgers led team and not score touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's going to score touchdowns. So that needs to be the focus. And then defensively, I think I think you have the right scheme in place to kind of to that bend but don't break uh, that bend but don't break type of defense that's going to allow the Bears to stay in the game and keep it close. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. It's it's the Packers.
Best way you can put it, right? Best way you can put it.
It's the Packers, man, and I really want the Bears to play well, and I think they will. I think one thing I noticed in week one, and I think it's going to carry on the rest of the season. Everybody talks about the lack of talent they have on the roster, and um, those guys aren't slow. They listen, they hear this stuff, so you got to play with a kind of a chip on the shoulder to prove that that you belong. You belong in the league, that you belong on the field. And this is their opportunity to they have to seize that opportunity to show people that they can play. And I think when that happens, people raise their level. And I think that's something that I'm expecting to see tonight. I'm expecting the Bears to raise their level,
Yeah.
raise their level.
Yeah, no, I think that's I think when it comes to big games and regardless of where the Bears are, where they're going this season, as much as, I'm sure many of us don't expect them to go, to go out there and win 11, 12 games, something like that. But when you play in big games and you stay in big games and you compete, especially with the big dogs in the division in the NFL, I think it says a lot about where the Bears are going and the coaching staff, especially with how this coaching staff is really, with the whole hit process and all that, they've
Mhm.
kind of let them know the hustle, do all that, and the Bears are doing that. I mean, I think that
Right.
showed a lot in the first half,
But here's
despite
and
Oh,
here's
go
the
ahead.
thing: like when you play that way, you make your
Mhm.
own luck. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
make your own luck,
Hmm.
and things tend to happen more. You know what I'm saying? When you're hustling and you're getting involved, and you know that I think just playing with that kind of energy is infectious for everybody, and good things tend to happen, especially in the game of football. When it's not like baseball. You know what I'm saying? We're playing hard, it can actually work against you
Yes.
sometimes. you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But football is a game that you can, just if you try that little bit harder, that little bit extra, something good is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is true though, right? It's like some of the mistakes you got to take advantage of them. It's different from other sports, and in
hmm
football, it's you can definitely get away with some of those things. Finally, we'll finish off with the keys to your main key to the game. What is like for in your eyes? What's the one thing that has to happen for the Bears to win tonight?
I think the key to the game is going to be the line of scrimmage for on both sides of the ball. I think that Green Bay is going to make a concerted effort to pound the rock and run the ball,
Mhm.
and open up some big plays with play action. Once we, you know, try to get the Bears to commit to having 8 in the box, so it can open up the field for Aaron Rodgers to do damage. So they got to be able to stop the run with the front seven, and then likewise on the other side of the ball for the Bears, the offensive line, they need to get that run game off strong. Um, with Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, and lean on that, and because they're going to be coming out the fields. That defense,
Mhm.
they're supposed to be an improved defense.
Mhm.
The folks in Green Bay thought this could be a top 10 defense, and they came out in week one and looked like garbage.
Mhm. Yeah.
so they're going to come out here and get something to prove, and I think they're going to have to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and impose their will. Use that hits principle, play with that intensity, and I think that would be the key to a Bears victory.
Yeah, no, it makes it. That's very valid points. I mean, the thing is, also is the way I see it is, and I think you can say it's about any Bears game that you want them to win is you gotta play a complete game, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of you can't as much as they didn't fall behind. It felt like a lot, right? Even though it was 7-0 in most of the first
Mm-hmm.
half against the San Francisco 49ers, it felt like a lot more than that. So
Mm-hmm.
if they're gonna have a tough first half, for example, which you hope it's not, gonna be that way, as much just stay in the game, especially the defense is always gonna keep you in the game, right? But it's the offense you kind of want to
Mm-hmm.
have some more life to it, especially in the first half. And hopefully they can do that. I mean,
Well,
the
yeah,
run game,
when the offense can put points on the board, the
yeah.
defense will play with a lot more energy, and
Yep.
they get out there a little bit more because they're trying to protect the lead, and
Mhm.
trying to protect that victory. So it's a lot different than playing from behind. So that I agree with you. The Bears
Mhm.
need to get off to a quick start.
Definitely. And we hope also too that the running game is they can set the tone a little more with Montgomery and Herbert. And I mean, I loved what I saw in the second half when it came to Herbert, and just like obviously the fact that Montgomery led in receptions, I think was kind of something to look at. But I do want to see a little more from Montgomery, and even more from Herbert, just because I really like the way he plays. So hopefully they're able to do more there. But hopefully just in general, hopefully the Bears can win, man. So
Yep. Hopefully they can win.
all right. So thanks for watching War Bears pregame, and we'll try to do this every weekend, whether it be live or pre-recorded. But we'll sure be to send out a tweet and share it up, and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And for Saul Rodriguez, Joe Tanksley, until next week, everybody, enjoy the game and go Bears.
Go Bears. Bear down.